Welcome to this episode of Janet Yong 八字 series. In today's episode, I'll be sharing about the ideal orientation or output structure under the traditional 八字 system. Just like any other orientations or structures, there will be two profiles that we'll be discussing today. The first is that of the artist profile, or what we call the eating god structure in the traditional 八字 system. The second is that of performer profile or the herding officer structure in the traditional 八字 system. So if you do like this series in the Janet Yong 八字 series, please do click on the like button and subscribe to our channel. Click on the notifications bell so that you receive a new video reminder whenever I upload new videos. Thank you, and let's start with our lesson right now. So, similar to all the other episodes, please remember to download your 八字 chart at 八字calculator.janetyong.com, or you can scan the QR code as shown in this particular slide to get your 八字 chart. In a normal 八字 chart itself, where we have the year, the month, the day, and the hour pillar, just like in all the other episodes, what you like to look for is the eating god, which is EG, or herding officer, which is HO, in the month branch that is shown in the red rectangle here. So that will basically identify for you what is the structure or orientation of the individual. In the traditional 八字 system, this is one person will call born in the month of the output structure. So in this person, we can also see that there are quite a few of the output profiles of herding officer as well as eating god. Now, besides that, in terms of characteristics, like I mentioned earlier in other videos, is that whatever that's present inside your month branch usually has a longer, or what we call stronger, influence in your chart, and therefore generally you display these particular characteristics in your chart. But when we go through the luck cycle, okay, if you are not the output structure, or if you are not an ideal orientation person, when you do go through basically the structures or the influences of either the herding officer or the eating god, you will have to actually pick up the skill sets that are required. As can be seen in this particular 八字 chart, this person is not born in the month of the output structure, but does have actually the output influences of both the herding officer and the eating god in their natal chart. So when they go through the luck cycles of 52 and 62 and has the influence of the output structures of both the herding officer and the eating god, that's when their creativity comes. So for instance, I'm not born in the output structure month as well, but I do have a high percentage of influence of the output structures, especially that of the eating god within my chart, or what we call the artist profile in the Asian personality profiling system. So when my luck cycles of either the 10-year luck cycle or the annual luck cycle came in, that's when I actually wrote my books on the Asian personality profiling system in the Being Happy and Successful series. So as you can see, when we may not necessarily have that particular profile influence in our natal chart, if we are willing to actually pick up the skill sets during the luck cycle of the 10-year luck cycle or the annual, we can pick up the skill sets and also produce something as well. And it is also important to realize that basically our output element creates the wealth element. So if we do not take good use of those experiences that come in, pick up the right kind of skill sets, then we will generally not be able to what we call produce the wealth, create basically IP and creativity, or what we call in media terms assets that belong to us in the longer term. These are the 3 books in the Being Happy and Successful series. Actually, the idea was mooted in the year 2010 to write the first book to compare the traditional Bazi system to that of the Western profiling system in the year 2010. However, that wasn't my output year. So 2 years later, in the year 2012, which was my output element, I basically wrote and published the book with thanks to Joe Yap, Research Sindiri Berhad for publishing my first 2 books. And in the year 2015, which was another year that belongs to my output element, I wrote the other 2 books in the Being Happy and Successful series, one on managing yourself and others, and the other one on the entrepreneur in you. And in 2018, basically the year of the Young Earth Dog, I revised actually 2 editions of the book and wrote another 4th book on the effective Asian leadership. So as you can see, when we make good use of the luck cycle influence, we can create plenty of assets that will help us in wealth creation in the future. Right now, I'd like to basically recap on the Asian personality profiling system, which I shared earlier on as well in one of my other videos. As shown in this particular chart, usually we will investigate the day master first, or the element, so that we can understand our intrinsic characteristics, then followed on by our orientation or structure in terms of the right kind of work environment that we should be in. And of course, we should be looking and investigating our JYPQ chart, which generally talks about what are the profile influences that are stronger in our chart and what are the skill sets that we can develop. So for this particular episode, we'll be basically focusing more on the base profile, which I'll share with you later on in a JYPQ chart. And if you have not downloaded our free, go to Google Play Store or Apple Store, search for Paths by Trilogy to download this particular app, or you can scan this QR code to download the app itself. Once you have downloaded the app and key in the relevant information, you should be able to generate these charts, where first part, it will show you your day master or element, and there are videos and articles for you to refer and watch so that you can understand yourself better. The second part is really about your structure or orientations. So similarly, there are articles and videos for you to watch. And the third one, which will be our focus today, is the JYPQ chart, which shows what are the profile influences that are stronger within your Bazi chart. The Paths mobile app, you can also get our career profiling report, and in page 5 and 6 of the report, you will basically see the profiles that have a stronger influence in your chart. Now in this case, what we're looking for are profiles within the yellow quadrant, because they are obvious, as well as a stronger influence in our chart. And the other one that we will focus on is really the base profile, which is within the red rectangle in this particular JYPQ chart as shown in the slide. Now for this person, the output elements are there. Now what happens for a person who does not generally have a output element within their chart, or what we will say the blind spot? So in this example, you can see that both the performer and artist profile for this particular person is in the gray blind spot box. So it can be an issue at times for the person who's involved, because they may generally have lots of ideas, just like this person, he's a philosopher profile, but they may not necessarily be able to express themselves well. So generally, when you are not able to express yourself well, you may not be able to brand yourself or position yourself such that people can recognize your talents, because another way of looking at the output structure is the ability to showcase your talent and creativity. Now Now, it doesn't mean that if you do not have an output element, you are not creative or innovative. But if you are not able to express and showcase to other people will not have the chance to recognize this capability within you. So for that itself, sometimes we look at the balancing of the elements. That's why we look at favorable and unfavorable elements, and the key is being aware such that if you're not able to speak on a spontaneous basis, then practice makes perfect. So that's one of the key things. Or in terms of expression, if you're not able to express it well in a speech format, then maybe going through and drawing a flow chart if you are more process oriented, or writing down your ideas, the to-do list, and explaining it through diagrams may help you, rather than basically not having the ability to actually express your thoughts and your viewpoints, which can impact your career advancement in the longer term. Let's take a look at what are the things that motivate an artist. The artist is someone who's creative, optimistic, and loyal. Therefore, they generally like to work in environments that allow them to showcase their innovation, but because they are more of an introvert, generally they would not like a hostile work environment because they may not necessarily be able to express their thoughts. Since they're more introvert, they usually will be more willing to share in a smaller group, or when people invite them to share their ideas. So that's one of the key things. The other profile is more extroverted, or what we call the performer or hurting officer profile. Basically, they are more sharp-minded, they have high self-esteem, and they are spontaneous. So they usually will also prefer work environments where they're given the freedom to express themselves, to brand themselves. So comparatively, both are idea-oriented. So usually they would be the ones who will pick up new ideas and express it and try to adopt new ways of doing things. Remember, I mentioned earlier, it's the output element that basically creates the wealth element. So if you are going through the output structure, even if you are not an output structure influence person or idea oriented person, you can pick up the skill sets, which I'll share with you a little later on, so that you can brand yourself and be creative and agile and adaptable, which are crucial in these uncertain times. So let's take a look at the skill sets that it's important for the artist profile to basically pick up, or this is what we call the eating gourd structure under the traditional Bazi system. Their inherent talent is creative, they are good at thinking out of the box, and they are passionate for knowledge as well as good at strategic thinking. So therefore, the skill sets that they need to pick up and build would be that of creativity and innovative thinking. One of the ways that the idea-oriented person or the artist profile can basically come up with ideas is utilizing the technique of mind mapping. Okay, one of the issues actually with an output-oriented person, whether it's the artist or the hurting officer, is at times they have too many ideas and they cannot implement it well enough. So prioritizing basically, or drawing a mind map and writing down or highlighting what are their priorities, implementing maximum of 3 ideas at one go would be crucial. Because at the end of the day, innovation only comes about when a creative idea is actually put into action to produce something that people want. So if you have 10 basically ideas that you're working on, but none of them come to fruition, then you will never be able to deliver anything innovative, correct? So the next thing that you can look at is actually strategic or strategy development, because they usually have ideas of how things will go in the longer term. Using these ideas, drawing it out into maps, into customer experience journeys, this will help you in coming up with strategies on how you want to target your audiences in order to build basically your future. or you can basically learn the skill set of strategic development and move higher in the organization as well. The third one would be on writing and storytelling. So for instance, what I mentioned earlier to you, in the years when I actually had the strong artist profile influence, I basically wrote a lot, whether is it for my blogs and articles, and especially for publishing my books. And in those years, generally the flow comes. However, you need to pick up and start practicing. So if you do not pick up the right kind of writing skill sets or get a mentor to help you, even if you have an inherent talent, you may not necessarily be able to come up with books, because these may only be ideas in your head, right? So I think besides actually having the ideas, the key thing is taking the decision and action to implement the ideas that you have, and making sure that you only prioritize. Now, if you have 10 ideas, you write down all the 10. Just focus on the 3 and deliver the 3 first. And when you find that maybe one of the ideas do not work, then you move on to the next one. Do not try to do too much at any one point in time. So let's take a look at that of the performer. What kind of skill set should the performer or hurting officer under the traditional 八字 system should pick up? So their inherent talent is inventive, inspiring, and they have the gift of the gap. So what does it mean by the gift of the gap? Gift of the gap is the ability to be on the spot, and they are able to answer and think on their feet to be able to present. So that's why usually if you are the performer profile, one of the key things you like to do in the longer term is to pick up presentation skills, storytelling skills, and brand yourself so that you will be recognized. And therefore you should also be in a work environment that allows you to be recognized. No point hiding behind paperwork and nobody recognizes you for the effort. One of the key skill sets that the performer should pick up is actually public speaking and storytelling. And there are many people within my network and connections that tells me storytelling is crucial in the corporate environment, because nobody will be interested in listening to just facts and figures, correct? So next, of course, is to learn about branding, to learn about marketing, especially right now in digital marketing. And the other one is, like I mentioned earlier on, for the artist profile, it's great to be creative, but being creative and not innovative does not serve the purpose. You need to take action. So similarly, basically write down all your ideas, whether is it a mind map format or whichever format that you are comfortable with, recording it into your books, the iPad. Then after that, prioritize to the top 2 or 3 ideas that you would like to explore. Take a decision to implement those ideas so that you can turn them into innovation and help with your wealth creation in the longer term. So that's basically for the performer profile. So like in all the other episodes, besides understanding ourselves, it is also crucial to understand others. And one of the key persons that we should look at in terms of understanding is definitely our boss. In the second edition of my Being Happy and Successful series, Book 2, Managing Yourself and Others, in Chapter 3, there is a focus on the different kinds of profiles, their orientations, how you can understand your boss, and therefore their leadership style and decision making to get them on your side, because they will be crucial in helping to evaluate you and groom you in the longer term. So for the artist profile, like I mentioned, they are creative, optimistic, and loyal. So they are generally very strategic leaders, okay? But they are also what we call a tad perfectionists. So usually they believe that people can work well together. They believe in collaboration and trust and have great empathy. So they usually are willing to listen to you. However, one of the key things though is because they have their own ideas on how things should be done, and they're quite perfectionists in the way that things should be done. So they may generally delay the entire decision making. So in the same way, like an individual where we need to prioritize, if your boss tends to be fixated with too much of the details to making it perfect, then I think having a framework or a structure to remind them in terms of the deadlines and urgency of the project at hand, especially if you are an action-oriented or process-oriented profile, would be crucial. What about that of the performer? The performer is basically someone who's sharp-minded and has a high level of self-esteem. So usually their leadership brand is very strong. They will be very inspiring, like I mentioned earlier. However, they are the ones who also will want you to basically carry out the task on your own, because they'll be busy with all the other ideas that they would like to implement. So once they give you a task, make sure that when you go back to them, do not just present them with your problems. If you are stuck and hit an obstacle or roadblock, go to them with your problems as well as a suggestion on how you like to resolve things, and then ask them for their ideas on how they may be able to support you. There was this story that I would like to tell you in my corporate days. I used to work for a regional marketing director, and I had a colleague who usually, because they are new in the environment and covering the different territories, would go in and sit and talk with my regional marketing director and ask him what to do. And at the end of that conversation, the marketing director actually told him, I hire you to solve problems. Do not come back to me with your problems. If not, I would not need you. When I heard about the story, I thought it was really true, because at this point in time, I think no one has the answer or the solutions to every single problem. So most of our bosses would delegate things down to us, and it's up to us to face the problem head on. And when we go back to our bosses or superiors to ask for help and seek support, we should have really done our homework to look at the pros and cons of situation, to come up with solutions, and therefore that puts us in a better light when it comes to performance evaluation. Now in life, whether is it your child or even your own business, I think it's also crucial that we do not get stuck in a situation. We should appeal and utilize Nobleman styles that I've actually shared in a previous video to help you overcome your problems. Do not stop and do not go on a downward spiraling trend, because that will not aid us in our career development in the longer term. Thank you for watching this particular episode. I hope that some of the tips I shared has benefited you. So if you would like to, you could also basically get this complete 八字 career profiling report, which basically states your base profile, the JYPK chart, your orientation, as well as the favorable elements for you specifically. You can basically go to the link that I've shown here or scan the QR code. And I would like to thank you for your time for watching this particular episode, and I'll see you in the next episode. If you like this particular video, please do remember to click on the like and subscribe button and on the notifications bell so that we can remind you whenever I upload a new video. Thank you, and I see you in the next episode.